Detroit Mayor Mike Duggan is one of the keynote speakers here at the policy conference, and his appearance comes after delivering his third State of the City address this week, where he talked about the city's progress in the fight against blight, improved bus service, and balanced budgets. But he said there are several challenges that still lie ahead.
Everything on the financial front is not rosy. We do have some clouds looming. I know my colleagues up here know this, and we're just going to have to deal with it. And the cloud that's looming is that the latest report shows we have a $491 million deficit in our pension fund, which starts to come due in 2024. Now, you might say, 2024, why are you talking to us about it today? But the way that you deal with these problems, it's not a crisis today, it's a problem today, is you start to deal with it early, you deal with it honestly, and we can manage it. And the other reason we start talking about it today is we are going to keep our pension fund solvent. We are going to keep our promise to our retirees. It's been broken once, and we're going to make darn sure it never gets broken again.
For the second year, the mayor took his message to the neighborhoods, delivering it at the Second Ebenezer Church. And afterwards, the thousands of people in attendance were invited to take part in an informational opportunity fair set up on church grounds. It was a very upbeat State of the City address, and it was a long one last night. Nolan, what were your first impressions from it?
Well, I mean, it was a pep talk, and that's part of his challenge. He's got a lot of initiatives going on. They're not, the city is not where it needs to be yet. Services are still lagging. He acknowledged that. Crime's still too high. Transportation's still lagging. Schools need a lot of work. He's got to convince people to stay while he and others try to fix all that. You can't have any more drain of population for the city. It's got to start heading in that other direction.
Because that is one of the benchmarks that he said. Yeah. In 5 years, we're going to grow the population of the city, and that's what you can judge my job on.
He says that is the only indicator that he wants to be judged on, is whether the population is growing or shrinking. I said to him when he said it, I thought that was almost crazy benchmark to set for himself, given that it's been 6 decades of population slide in the city. I mean, it would be a tremendous pivot to go back in the other direction. He seems to believe that he's already there, that it's not shown up in official census estimates yet, but that we've bottomed out and are headed back in the other direction.
He believes they've stabilized the population and they'll grow from here.
But to really move in that other direction, you do have to start dealing with some of these intrinsic problems in neighborhoods. I mean, if you want families to move back into the city, you got to deal with schools, you got to deal with crime, you got to deal with insurance rates. People don't want to live here and pay 3 times they do in the suburbs.
Well, he did talk about the de-insurance program that's been trying to get off the ground for the last year, and that he's still having trouble getting some kind of buy-in.
Yeah, well, and it's a solution, right? It's a fix to one part of the problem. I'm not sure it is a total solution, and that may be part of the problem getting it through the legislature. But also, there's this question of whether offering Detroiters insurance that doesn't include the same medical coverage that everybody else has makes them sort of second-class citizens. Some council members have raised that issue. Some members of the delegation have. I think we're a long way from getting
this needs to be a statewide reform, and I think the legislature wants it to be a statewide reform. I think one of the things that's holding de-insurance up is, you've got a group of lawmakers who want this to be a much broader.
That everybody should have.
You've got a very powerful lobby in the medical community that doesn't want to give up these unlimited benefits, but it's an essential piece, because right now you've seen these billboards, 1-800, I'll sue your fanny. Those those lawsuits, those liability lawsuits, you said 2 to 3 times the rate in Detroit.
Yeah, I mean, that's where
the suburbs. That is what's driving up the cost. You take the unlimited funding of medical benefits out, because these attorneys are also getting a piece of the medical bills.
Sure.
I mean, it's a real racket.
The problem,
you take that out, and the cost goes way down.
Well, the problem, of course, though, is if you do get in an accident and you are really hurt, that de-insurance is not going to cover everything that you're going to need, and so that's where the question comes up about whether that's fair to Detroiters to even offer that, given that they're desperate for lower prices, but you're also giving something up.
All right, let's talk about some of the positives that he touted last night. He's talking about technology and crime fighting and some of the initiatives that they're putting together with the Detroit Police Department, talking about the new mortgage program so that more people will be able to, there's more money available for people to buy homes. He also talked about the property value increases in about 60 neighborhoods that he said have gone up by about 20% or so, but yes, that there are still neighborhoods that are lagging behind. Also, lighting has been on the up. So those little things we talk about in terms of lighting neighborhoods, that there are more bus schedules that are on time and you have more buses out there. So there have been some positives in this past year.
He's picked the low-hanging fruit. I mean, the things that should have been right for decades and that aren't as difficult as schools and crime. And I think that's essential because that starts to build trust in the community that he can finish the rest of the task.
Did you find, Stephen, that he was doing an awful lot of thanking to everybody across the board? It wasn't just to City Council, but he thanked Governor Snyder in the same breath that he thanked President Obama. He thanked the congressional delegation up and down the wall, and then he even thanked a Republican who is spearheading the Detroit Public Schools reform bill in the legislature.
Well, he's sort of taking the big hug approach to politics right now because number one, some of the things he can claim credit for getting done were cooperative efforts, right? It's not just him and the council that can do it. There's other people who need to be involved, but more importantly, the stuff that's down the road, he badly needs support from the Republican legislature in Lansing to do the school thing first on that list, right? That doesn't happen unless you get cooperation in Lansing, and he needs some things that are not on their list right now.
Right,
and so,
but in terms of schools, he hammered that this has to happen immediately, and I think that there finally has to be some kind of sense of urgency in Lansing, even though we have two plans that are very far apart. Nolan, talk to me about, is anyone any closer to talking about the Detroit Education Commission that the mayor thinks is so key in terms of the control of opening and closing schools?
I think that's the wild card because I think everybody's agreed they've got to address the finances. The state's got to settle this debt. I think that's been agreed upon. The House wants to tie all sorts of heavy strings onto the money. I think they'll work that out. The Senate doesn't have a Detroit education bill proposal in it. I think it's a key piece. The mayor said it doesn't work without that.
It will not work without
I think that's the hardest piece to get through the legislature because the charter school community is really worried that once the politicians in Detroit have the power to shut them down or keep them from opening, you'll see what's happened in New York City where de Blasio sort of target schools as soon as he got in
But
office.
the upside is more the potential is to see something that's happened in Massachusetts or in Maryland where charters open under known high-quality operators and are held accountable when they don't perform, and that's what we don't have here in Detroit.
They got to build in some assurance that it's not going to be thrown to the political winds here.
I think it'll be about quality. Right now, whim is the thing that's killing it.
I think it'd be about quality under this mayor, but who knows who's going to be the next mayor, and that's what they're worried about.
All right, Detroit neighborhood.